Hello from Daily Moral Story. Welcome to today's inspiring tale. He stepped inside the bustling cafe with a subtle smile and a baseball cap pulled low over his brow. People hustled around him, clinking cups, chatting with friends, and relishing the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. By most standards, he was just another customer in a well-worn hoodie, scanning the chalkboard menu like anyone else. But this man was no ordinary patron. He was Lucas Bennett, the CEO and founder of this very establishment. Months ago, he had opened a chain of coffee shops that thrived on personal connections and quality ingredients. Yet even the best coffee can lose its magic if the spirit behind it fades. So, Lucas chose to spend one Friday afternoon incognito, hoping to witness genuine moments and see how employees treated customers. He wanted to rediscover his own passion for the craft he loved. He took a slow breath, savoring the sweet smell of roasted beans. There, behind the counter, was a young barista who appeared bright and cheerful, greeting each person with kindness. Lucas stepped forward. He reached the register, prepared to order a simple latte, unaware that this ordinary purchase would ignite a conversation that would change everything. Right then, fate beckoned. Lucas placed his order, keeping his voice casual. The barista, whose name tag read Mason, flashed a quick grin and asked if he wanted any flavor syrups. Lucas politely declined, preferring to keep it simple. As Mason scribbled the order on a cup, Lucas felt a flicker of pride. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about seeing how far his vision had come. Years of hard work, sleepless nights, and countless setbacks had led to this chain's success. Despite that success, Lucas had always believed in remaining humble, remembering his own humble beginnings. Once he had been just as uncertain about his future as any aspiring worker. He glanced around, taking in the decor he'd selected. Warm lighting, jazz playing in the background, and art on the walls. It was the kind of space that invited people to slow down, connect, and breathe. Yet a part of him felt he was missing something deeper. He had wanted his brand to stand for hope and community, not just caffeine. That was why he had insisted on meeting employees face to face whenever possible. Today, however, he was here as an observer, to taste the authenticity he hoped lingered in every steaming cup. Once he received his latte, Lucas drifted toward a corner table. He settled onto a wooden chair, relishing the moment to watch the shop in action. Customers lined up with strollers and briefcases, from teens clutching textbooks to retirees searching for a friendly face. Mason worked with precision, crafting cappuccinos and Americanos, somehow maintaining a cheery conversation with each patron. Lucas appreciated how the young man spread warmth in an effortless way, reminiscent of the brand's guiding principles. After a few sips, Lucas noticed Mason leaning toward the back counter, speaking in hushed tones on a small phone. It wasn't loud enough for the customers to hear, but Lucas caught snatches of the words, "Mom, medicine, and I'll figure it out." Something about that whispered exchange tugged at his heart. He saw Mason's posture sink for a fraction of a second, though the barista quickly recovered his smile. Intrigued, Lucas wondered if there was more to Mason's story. He recalled his own early days, juggling multiple responsibilities while worrying about bills. Maybe Mason was doing the same. Deciding he needed a refill soon, Lucas vowed to linger, hoping for a chance to learn why the barista's eyes carried that sorrow. Mason returned to the register, greeting the next customer with an enthusiastic welcome. Lucas sipped his latte slowly, observing every detail. He noticed how Mason's smile twitched at the corners whenever he glanced at the clock. Something weighed on the young barista's mind. As the cafe buzzed with chatter, Lucas wondered if he should approach Mason directly or observe a little longer. A moment later, Mason took a break, stepping away to wipe down a table nearby. Lucas seized the opportunity. "Great coffee," he offered, giving a friendly nod. Mason smiled, seemingly appreciative of the compliment. "Thanks," he replied. "I'm glad you're enjoying it." Lucas asked a few benign questions about the blend, trying to break the ice. Mason explained a few details about sourcing, but his gaze drifted as though he were wrestling with something deeper. Lucas recognized that look, the concern of someone who wasn't sure how to face tomorrow. Mason excused himself politely and returned behind the counter, fielding new orders. Lucas knew better than to push a conversation prematurely. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled onto a story that reminded him of his own past struggles and the kindnesses that once saved him. Time passed and Lucas ordered another latte just to maintain his cover. Every so often he caught Mason eyeing his phone, a worry line etched into his forehead. Yet whenever a customer stepped up, Mason's face lit up with unwavering positivity. Lucas admired that resilience. It reminded him of himself. Back when he first launched the business using borrowed money and prayers, he knew how it felt to be on edge, balancing hope with the fear of failure. Mason's anxiety sparked a protective instinct within Lucas. He wanted to help, but wasn't sure how to approach the subject. After all, he was supposed to be incognito, just a random guy enjoying coffee. Eventually, Mason took another short break, this time slipping outside through a side door. Unable to resist, Lucas followed a minute later, pretending to make a phone call of his own. Standing near the alley wall, he overheard Mason speaking quietly again. "I can work double shifts," he said, voice trembling. "I promise we'll manage." Lucas's chest tightened. He guessed Mason was speaking to his mother, reassuring her about something. The conversation ended with Mason exhaling heavily before soon returning inside. Lucas lingered outside, determined to learn more. In that moment, Lucas remembered a time when he'd almost given up on his dreams. He'd been close to collapsing under debt and disappointment, yet a small act of kindness had reignited his hope. Now, watching Mason's troubled expression, Lucas felt that same stirring in his heart. He wanted to do more than watch. He wanted to make a difference. But how far should one go when stepping into another person's struggle? As he re-entered the cafe, he pondered that dilemma. Should he remain a distant observer or risk revealing his identity to help someone who clearly needed a hand? We often ask ourselves similar questions. When do we intervene and when do we mind our own business? Think about it. Have you ever hesitated to reach out, fearing you might overstep? Lucas knew the line could be tricky and might demand compassion. Still, he couldn't shake the urge to help. Taking a seat again, he watched Mason move with a brightness behind the counter. The barista offered gentle smiles and warm words. Once customers looked away, the clouds returned to his eyes. Lucas decided to wait for the perfect moment, trusting his gut to guide him toward the right approach. Over the next hour, customers came and went. Lucas kept a discreet watch, noticing that Mason handled each transaction with unwavering courtesy. When the line died down, Lucas approached the counter for a pastry. He smiled. "You've got a great place here," he said lightly, testing Mason's reaction. Mason thanked him, but seemed distant. Lucas could see him wrestling with a heavy burden. "Listen," Lucas ventured. "I couldn't help overhearing a bit earlier. Is everything okay?" Mason stiffened. For a moment he looked defensive, but then his shoulders slumped. "I'm just trying to figure out a family situation," he replied softly. "Nothing to worry about." Lucas nodded understandingly, sensing Mason's pride and reluctance. He recognized that feeling all too well. "If you ever need someone to talk to," Lucas offered gently, with compassion, "I'm around." Mason gave a polite smile and thanked him, but the unease lingered in his eyes. After handing Lucas the pastry, he turned away to help another customer. Lucas could tell that Mason was appreciative of the concern, but not ready to open up. Sometimes trust took time. Lucas returned to his seat, more determined than ever to find a meaningful way to support this young man. As the afternoon wore on, Lucas decided it might be best to talk with another staff member. Perhaps they knew more about Mason's circumstances. He noticed a senior barista named Teresa. She looked truly friendly and experienced, possibly someone Mason trusted. While Mason helped a new wave of customers, Lucas approached Teresa under the guise of complimenting the cafe. He mentioned how welcoming the atmosphere was and asked how long she'd worked there. Teresa, smiling warmly, said she'd been with the company since the early days. Lucas tried to steer the conversation naturally. "Mason seems like a good kid," he remarked. Teresa's face softened. "He's got a big heart," she agreed. "He's been dealing with a tough situation at home, but he never complains." Lucas probed gently for details. Teresa only mentioned that Mason's mother was ill and he was covering her medical bills. "He's basically working to keep them afloat," she said, lowering her voice. "I wish I could do more to help." Lucas felt a pang in his chest. The desire to reveal who he was and fix everything grew stronger, but he held back. Instead, he thanked Teresa, deciding that the truth would emerge in due time. Lucas spent the next half hour drafting a plan in his mind. He imagined offering to pay for Mason's mother's treatments, then realized it might embarrass him. Mason seemed like the type to value hard work and independence. Lucas had been the same, always anxious about taking handouts. Perhaps there was a more dignified approach. Sipping his coffee, Lucas recalled a local charity program he'd once launched that helped low-income families with medical expenses. If he could expand that initiative, it might benefit Mason and many others without singling him out. Deep down, Lucas knew direct conversation was still crucial, but he wanted to build a safety net that made Mason feel empowered, not pitied. With his mind set, Lucas rose from his chair. He approached Teresa again, asking if the manager was around. A moment later, a man named Mark stepped forward. Lucas introduced himself as a customer curious about the cafe's ownership structure. Mark explained that the founder was a man who believed in community support. Lucas tried not to grin at the description of himself. He asked Mark for a business card, mentioning he had ideas. Mark obliged, unaware he was handing the card to the CEO. Near closing time, Mason emerged from the back, looking exhausted. Lucas decided the moment had come. He approached the counter and requested a final coffee, making sure there were no other customers around. Leaning in, he spoke in a low voice. "Mason, I know this is personal, but I overheard you talking about your mom. I've been in tough spots before. Maybe I can help." Mason's eyes widened with a mix of fear and hope. He hesitated, clearly torn between pride and desperation. Finally, he sighed. "She's battling a chronic condition," he admitted. "The bills keep piling up. We have insurance, but it barely covers anything. She insists I shouldn't worry, but I can't just stand by." Lucas felt his heart clench. "You're not alone," he said softly. "There are resources out there, and sometimes good people want to lend a hand." Mason looked down, fighting tears. "I appreciate it, but I can't take charity. My mom raised me to be self-sufficient." Lucas respected that conviction. "I get it," he answered. "No pressure. But if there was a program that helped people in similar situations, would you consider it?" Mason swallowed hard, nodding. "Yes, maybe. If it helped others too." Inwardly, Lucas felt relieved. He had a plan that might preserve Mason's dignity. The next day, Lucas returned to corporate headquarters and convened a quick meeting with the charity board he'd set up years ago. Using his authority as CEO, he proposed expanding the existing medical assistance initiative to include employees who were primary caregivers for family members in need. Several board members nodded enthusiastically, agreeing that it aligned with the company's core values. Lucas emphasized that the program should remain broad, accessible to anyone within the organization facing serious medical financial burdens. He wanted to ensure Mason never felt singled out or pitied, but genuinely supported. By day's end, they had drafted an updated policy. Lucas felt a surge of hope. The real challenge, however, was how to present this opportunity to Mason in a way he would accept. Lucas planned to roll out the new initiative in person, traveling from store to share the details. That same evening, he emailed Mark, requesting a staff meeting at the café. Mark agreed, impressed that a representative of top management was taking such an interest and unwavering devotion. Lucas smiled at the irony, eager to return with good news. 2 days later, Lucas arrived at the café wearing business casual attire instead of his undercover hoodie. Mark gathered the team, including Teresa and Mason, for a short meeting after closing time. Lucas introduced himself formally this time as Lucas Bennett, the company's CEO. Jaws dropped around the room. Mason looked stunned, remembering their earlier conversations. Lucas quickly dispelled any awkwardness. He thanked everyone for their dedication and explained that the company was expanding its internal assistance program. "We believe in supporting our own," he said, projecting warmth. "If you or an immediate family member faces medical challenges, we want to help shoulder that burden." He emphasized that it was a universal offer, not aimed at any single individual. Nonetheless, Mason's eyes glistened with understanding. After outlining the details, Lucas paused. "This initiative is in honor of all of you who work tirelessly each day to make our café feel like home." Applause broke out. Teresa beamed at Mason. Tears welled up in the young barista's eyes as he realized he could apply for help without feeling like a charity case. Lucas ended the meeting with heartfelt gratitude, promising to keep building a culture where compassion was as important as profit. After the meeting, Mason found Lucas near the espresso machine. His voice trembled with emotion. "I had no idea you were the CEO. All this time you were just you." Lucas smiled softly. "I prefer to see things from the ground level sometimes. Helps me remember why I started." Mason nodded, his eyes shimmering. "Thank you. It means a lot that you'd create something to help people like me without singling us out." Lucas placed a reassuring hand on Mason's shoulder. "You're part of the family," he said. "When one of us struggles, we all step up." Mason's resolve cracked and he whispered, "I was so scared my mom wouldn't get the care she needs." Lucas felt tears prick his own eyes. "She will," he assured, "and this program will help others too." They exchanged a grateful handshake, forging a bond that transcended roles. Teresa joined them, offering Mason a hug. The sight made Lucas proud. His cafe wasn't just a place for caffeine, it was a haven for hope. He felt more alive than ever, reminded that success meant nothing if it failed to touch hearts. As the staff prepared to lock up, Lucas knew a new chapter had begun. Word spread quickly about the new initiative. Employees from various branches reached out, grateful for a support system that valued their well-being. Mason's application was approved swiftly. His mother began receiving better care, allowing them both to breathe easier. Though Lucas could have easily paid the bills directly, he was glad he hadn't. This way, Mason retained a sense of dignity and community backing. The cafe thrived, not merely for its quality brews, but for the compassion behind each cup. Customers sensed the difference, sensing they were part of something larger. In quiet moments, Lucas often reflected on the day he'd gone undercover, simply hoping to see if the cafe's soul was still alive. He never expected to stumble upon a story that echoed his own past. Mason, once a worried barista with a heavy burden, now carried hope and optimism in his eyes. And Lucas, a CEO sometimes burdened by corporate demands, found renewed meaning in every steaming latte served. Together, they proved that success and kindness needn't be at odds. With every new day, their cafe stood as a beacon, reminding everyone who walked through its doors that genuine care can transform lives, one cup at a time. Stories like Lucas and Mason's remind us that real success isn't just about profit margins or flashy titles. It's about extending a hand when someone is on the brink of losing hope. When we look beyond ourselves, we discover a deeper purpose that fuels both community and business. Perhaps you see a piece of your own life in Mason's struggle or Lucas's desire to serve from the heart. The truth is, the smallest acts of kindness can spark a ripple effect far greater than any single gesture. As we close this story, let's carry forward a lesson. Empathy isn't a sign of weakness, but a bridge to understanding. Whether you're a CEO or a student, you hold the power to lighten someone's burden. By offering resources, time, or even a listening ear, you plant seeds of compassion that can grow into life-changing forests. If this tale moved you, share it with someone who might need a boost of faith in humanity today. Leave a comment, let us know your thoughts, and stay connected for more inspiring journeys. After all, a single cup of coffee, backed by genuine care, can warm not just the body, but the soul. Let us keep uplifting others. We hope this story, whether real or fictional, inspires you in some way. Stories spark hope. That's why we share them. May it remind you to lead with kindness, stand up for what's right, and believe in the power of change. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.